Hello everyone, it is Laura Berkman with LB Unleash Your Creativity, and I am coming to you on the Thanksgiving Sunday. I am just going to go over or here in Canada, it's the Thanksgiving Sunday anyway, so happy Thanksgiving to anyone who is watching just after this weekend. We are going to go over the coloring that needs to happen for the upcoming October club. So if you're part of my club, you will have gotten a kit from me, and you will be able to stamp your images and then prepare them by coloring how I'm going to show you today. We are going to do this outside of our club class on the, I think it's the 17th of October. Just looking to check that on my calendar here. We're going to do it outside of that class on the 17th of October, simply because coloring does take a long time, and I've received feedback that my participants prefer to have the time to do that slowly and stop and pause and go back and just take their time in coloring. So we're going to do that. With this card class, you are going to be doing two different types of coloring. So this first video is for the coloring with blends. So let's get to it.
Transitioned you down to my workspace, and I'm just going to apologize for the watermark that is on the screen. Most of you know that I've had some computer issues lately, and so I've ended up getting essentially a brand new computer in the old hardware case, and that has required us to download and reactivate a lot of subscriptions and programs and whatnot that I had. And I guess between the last time I purchased ManyCam and now they've done some updates, and one of the things that I cannot do with the update with this updated version is take off that watermark, but we're going to be looking into doing that because that was not part of the original subscription I purchased. And I'm just going to try to get you in a little closer. So not part of the original subscription I purchased, definitely in my way, and we're going to have to get that looked after. So what we're going to do is basically paint with our blends this beautiful mistletoe image so that we have some dimension and color just like this. So this is my sample. It's got all my color codes on it. If you are new to coloring, this is something that I highly recommend that you do with your images. Just make a practice image. So maybe even today you don't want to go right on the supplies that I gave you, and you can do that. This is just our basic white cardstock, so you can certainly, cut a scrap of your own stash and move forward and do that. So we are going to be using a few different blends today. We are going to be using the dark cherry cobbler, dark real red and light real red. So that's one. Oh, you can't see them. Sorry. That's one blend trio that we're going to be using. We are also going to be using the dark evergreen and the dark soft succulent. So that is another combination we're going to be using. And then we're going to do some underpainting before we even start adding the colors that we want to add with both the balmy blue and the dark smoky slate, and we're just going to lay down some color with these, and that's going to help us with our shading and shadowing. So I'm going to go ahead and use my dark smoky slate first, and where I want to be putting this is in all the places that I am going to put a really dark red where I want a heavy shadow. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. One thing you'll also notice with this new program is I cannot show you my face and my space at the same time, which is really unfortunate because that was a feature I highly liked. So I'm really sorry that I can't be with you visually at the same time as I'm coloring, but you'll get the idea. And hopefully we'll be able to get that fixed. So I'm just taking my blend and I'm swiping in one stroke as much as I can, just wherever Stampin' Up has put those little black marks. Those indicate where there should be a little bit of heavier shadow. So Stampin' Up has done us a favor and provided us with that little hint, and that is the only place that I am going to really add some of this gray. Okay, so that's it. That's all for the gray. I'm done. going to put that one away, and I'm going to bring out my Balmy Blue. Now, my Balmy Blue is kind of fun because we are actually going to color over the entire image with the exception of the berries in Balmy Blue. And you may be asking me, why are we coloring, branches that are usually green with blue? And you will see it's just going to add some phenomenal highlights and special shading behind that green color. So it just adds another dimension to the whole thing. So again, I'm just trying to make one pass with the pen over the different areas of my leaves and stems, and I'm not being too particular about getting exactly every single white mark covered. I'm just trying to be as precise as I can in that one single pass. Alright, so this one is going to take a little while. And our next card is going to be watercolored. So we're going to be doing the same technique that I'm showing you here with markers, but we're going to be doing it with a watercolor. So that might take a little bit of practice, but that's okay. I'm here to teach you a technique and to help you make some really beautiful cards. And I can promise you this was not my first attempt at coloring this. Here was my first attempt at coloring it. I didn't like it. And then this was my second attempt at coloring it. I didn't like it. I really played with my colors until I got something that I really liked. So, it might take a couple of tries, and that's okay. And if you don't want to color with the blends or the watercolor when we get there, if you're really not comfortable with watercolor, keep that paper and use it as a playground and cut your own image and just color it the same as I'm doing here today with the blends. But I do really encourage you to step out of your comfort zone and give this a try. It is so much fun to be able to play with all of these different mediums and color different images. Right, so I'm almost done here. All right, so there is our mistletoe, and it's all painted blue. So I'm going to let that ink dry a little bit. And while it is drying, I'm just going to take my dark cherry cobbler. I'm going to carefully open that pen, and I'm just going to go over where that gray is. So that gray is no longer going to be gray, it's going to be red. This is a very juicy pen. I'm just trying to be very careful to stay in my lines here. Okay, so you can see how that has created a really beautiful shadow. Okay. Next, I'm going to come in with the dark real red. And I am just going to blend over that cherry cobbler a little bit and come a little bit farther out with that dark real red. Just like that there. All right. So then I'm finally going to fill in those berries with my light real red. And this is just going to be filling in those white spots. And that's going to give me some really beautiful coloring on the berries. I keep wanting to call them cherries, but they're just the mistletoe berries. But you would use the same technique if you were coloring cherries. So do you see how adding that gray and that dark red has really given us some dimension on those berries? Very cool technique. All right, so from here, we are going to take our dark smoky, no, not smoky slate, dark evergreen. I think I also used the light evergreen, even though I didn't, light, I did. You're going to need your light soft succulent and evening evergreen as well. My apologies. I was reading my chart wrong when I grabbed my supplies here. Okay, so we're going to lay down the dark evergreen first, which is this one here. And it's going to go where the hash marks are on the stem. Can you see right in here? It's going to go right in there. Okay, so I'm going to turn this so that, and I'm just going to, as gently as possible with my pen, kind of create my own dashes along those hash marks there so that I'm not laying too much of the evening evergreen down. And I'm going to fill in the top of the stem on that one. Just create a little bit of hash marking. And we're going to go down here and do the same thing. Okay. And here. And a little bit more there. And then here. All right. I'm also going to just go on my leaves and make a little swish mark. I'm trying to start them off heavier and get them finer, but my hand is unsteady today. It's not working so well. But you know what? Once everything's blended together, it's not going to be that critical that these be perfect. So I'm not going to worry about it too much. I just want to create some depth in those leaves. Okay. Just like that. All right. I know it doesn't look like much yet, but trust me, it's going to come along. We are going to go into the light evening evergreen. So evening evergreen and soft succulent are colors that are very close. They're actually in the same family. Soft succulent is actually like a stamped off version of evening evergreen or a second generation. So they pair really well together, but you're not going to get a huge contrast in colors when you are coloring with them. You'll get enough, but it's not huge. So right now I'm just taking that light evening evergreen and I am filling in the stem completely. And I'm just going up to the leaf pretty much. And then we'll blend it into the leaf in a few minutes. We'll go up here. And then come down here. Try to keep things in my camera space, which changed because of that logo, so I apologize if something is in the way. Try to keep an eye on the camera while I'm coloring here. Oh, and I forgot the hash marks down there, but I can just go back quickly and add a few right in here while that ink's dry. There we go. That'll blend out. Okay, so once I have those stems completely filled in with the light evening evergreen, I'm just going to come around the bottom edge of each leaf here, and I'm going to add, just where there might be a little bit of a heavier shadow, I'm going to add some of the light evergreen. This is going to help us create those layers that you saw in, oh, here's the stem I missed, in my other version. Okay, so I'm just going to come down in here. And down to this point. There's definitely more shadow on this leaf because it's underneath everything. And those berries are going to create some shading on this leaf. You can already see, or I can already see, I think you can in the video too, yeah, how this is creating a little bit of shading and dimension to these colors and the leaves. All right, so there I think I'm done with the evergreen, and we are just going to go back to the soft succulent. I'm going to start with the dark soft succulent, and I'm going to create another layer in from that dark evergreen that we've done on the leaves. So just opening up that pen. Oh, wrong side. I prefer to work with the brush tip as opposed to the bullet. So I'm going to take where I've put the dark evergreen, and I'm just going to go over it with the soft succulent and start to create some of that shading and just leave some space to add the lightest color. So I'm just doing some really quick brush strokes like this, just to create that blending in that area. And I'm keeping it to about half or so of the, half to 3/4 of the leaf, just depending on where it is. And I'm trying to keep the pattern, the shape the same. Okay, whoops. Whoops, sorry about that. Spinning the paper around. I'm just trying to keep my hand out of the way of the space that I'm coloring so you can still see it. I'm going to go with this one like this. A little bit upside down for me, but that's okay. You can still see what's going on. And you'll notice I always go over the color that we've laid down before. That just helps reactivate that ink by getting it wet again and then blending that down. Okay, so you can see there's already quite a bit of layering of colors in there, and there's some dimension. That blue doesn't even look quite so blue anymore. So now we are going to fade that blue out completely, and we're going to do that by adding the light soft succulent. And I'm just going to, again, color over where I already have the ink so that I can wet that ink again, reactivate it, and then fill in those blue sections. And the leaves are, you know, you're never going to be able to color them exactly the same, or for sure I'm not going to be able to color them exactly the same. Just depends where your pen ends up that particular day as you're blending things out. So, but I think this looks just as good as my other two samples here. Okay. So we are almost done. Oh, this one I got out of the lines a little bit. I'm going to find my my color lifter, and I'll show you how to deal with that in a moment. A couple of places where I got out of the lines. I might be talking too softly. I hope that you guys can still hear me. you'll at least be able to see what I'm doing here. So again, we're just blending out those last spots of blue with the soft succulent, and it's just creating some beautiful shading on there. All right, so that's it there. Now there's a couple of spots, one in particular over here and just at the tip there where I went outside of the line. So if you bear with me just a moment, I'm going to get my color lifter, which of course is in my last case of blends here. And everything's falling over. Okay, well, I'll just move these out of the way. I'll put those away in a moment. So wherever you have a little bit of color that has gone out of the lines. So let me see if the camera is going to focus on that. There is a little bit out of the line over here and then some along the edge of this leaf. So I want to just push that color really to the other side of the paper is what's going to happen. By adding this color lifter on, just very carefully dabbing at that spot, I'm going to be able to get rid of the color that I'm not happy with. Same thing over here. I'm just going to run the color lifter along these spots. So one down here. It's going to go wet and it's not going to look great when I'm up close to it to begin with, but it is going to push that color away. There we go. So now those spots are gone. Okay, so it's kind of like a marker eraser. So that is as far as I want you to get with your two stamped images for one of the cards that we're doing with the card club. And I'm going to pause the video, clean up my space, and then get ready to watercolor the next card. So bear with me for a moment. Okay, I am back and I have our next stamped image here. So this is on watercolor paper, and the paper that I've given you has two textured sides. I just use the one, probably should have used this one actually, but it doesn't really matter. I haven't found there to be a difference with the watermark paper as to which side is right and which side is wrong. I know some there is a difference, but this particular one I have not found that to be the case. I am using some just regular Stampin' Up inks, and I'm also using a water painter from Stampin' Up. Now, I'm not going to be using the water that is in the paintbrush stem on here, and this actually isn't my favorite painting paintbrush anyway. I find these tips to be really, really long. I prefer our old ones. So our old water brushes look like this, and I much prefer that. But you are welcome to use whatever you have that you are comfortable with. You're going to need that paintbrush of some kind, a little pot of water. So I just use an old embellishment package, and I put a little bit of water in there. So that's my water cup. And then the other thing I am going to do is take my ink. So these are the inks that we are using. So we've got Smoky Slate, Soft Succulent, Native Navy, Balmy Blue, and Evening Evergreen. I have a glass mat here. So I am going to be smushing my ink on the glass mat. You could just take a block. I'll actually do it this way with my gray for you, just so you can see how you can do it if you don't happen to have a glass mat. So I'm just going to take my Smoky Slate gray ink. You could press some ink onto the cover of your ink pad, but I don't actually like that. I find that makes quite a mess, and since I've discovered this method, I much prefer the blocks, and then when I got my glass mat, that is my absolute dream method. So we are just going to start by underpainting, just like we did in the last card that we did with the last image that we did, because we haven't actually made the card, with the berries and the blend. So I'm just going to take a little bit, you'll notice I dropped a little bit of water in the middle of that ink, and I'm just going to pull some of the ink into the water until I think I have the right coloring that I want. And I'm just going to take a scrap piece of paper. So I've just got another image over here that I had tried. This was one of my attempts, and I'm just going to flick my water on there to see if I am happy with the color. And I don't want this to be too gray, so that should be good enough for me. Just picking up some of that paint, and I'm going to paint on these berries in the same place that we did with that smoky slate on the last image. Okay, so you just pick up water and ink as you need it, and just swipe over that spot. We are going to need our heating tool because we want to make sure that any places that I should say we may need our heating tool. We need to make sure each spot that we're painting is dry before we add the next layer of color to it. Otherwise, it's just going to blend and give us a blob of color instead of creating some really pretty layers. So we're just going to paint in here. And then the last spot is just down here. And right there. Okay. So now we can still paint any area that is not touching the berries. So we're going to be doing the same thing. I do have a piece of paper towel off to the side, and I just dry off my tip so that it's not super wet. And I'm just going to take a baby wipe and clean off this block with the smoky slate gray because I no longer need that color. Okay. Now I'm going to need to do the underpainting with the Balmy Blue, again, just like we did on the last card. I'm going to move this up into that spot where the light reflects it. It really annoys me on this that it does that. And I'm just scraping a little bit of ink onto my glass mat. Where did I put this? Oh, okay. And then I'm going to take a little bit of my water, and this is one of the things I like about working on such a large surface. I can put my water completely away from my ink and then pull them together so that I have a space in the middle where they kind of meet, and I can get that color to be exactly what I want it to be. Like, that's too dark, so I want to pull in a little bit more water. There we go. That's better. So now I'm going to paint everything that I'm going to want green. So that's basically the stems and the leaves, just like we did the last time around. I'm going to, well, the berries seem to be dry already. There was a very little bit of water on there, so it shouldn't take long for that to dry. But as we add layers, we're going to probably need to dry that out with our heat tool. Okay, so I'm just going and painting a very thin coat of that blue all over my stems, and then I'm going to go into my leaves as soon as my stems are done. And again, just try not to touch your berries. You don't want them to have the blue underpaint if you can help it. And I'm going to try to start from the top down and work from the left-hand side of my paper to the right so that I'm not sticking my hand in spots that were already wet. So I don't want to transfer that out. I am being careful also to stay within the line that has been stamped. If you're really uncomfortable, oh, I should have mentioned, I did stamp this image in, I stamped in VersaFine. So I have this little VersaFine ink spot, which I've been trying out. I really quite like it for stamping or watercolor images. You can use Stays On. Stays On is the watercolor ink that Stampin' Up carries, but I have to say I hate fiddling with the cleanup of Stays On. I hate how it treats my photopolymer stamps. So I had heard some really good things about the Versamark or VersaFine Onyx Black ink, and decided to just give it a try, and I do really like it. I think I will be looking at investing in a larger pad of that and foregoing my Stays On ink. So I did stamp this in that VersaFine ink. If you are not comfortable watercoloring and you want a little bit more help, you could emboss this in black. So you would use your Versamark and your embossing powder on the watercolor paper, and that would just give you a little bit more firm lines so that the water doesn't allow your images or your coloring to go outside the lines of the images. So you'd create a little bit of a better wall. But that's completely up to you if that's something you want to do or not. Okay, so I'm almost finished here. Just got a couple more leaves to go. And again, with this underpainting, I'm not too concerned about getting every single last white area set and covered up with the blue. But I just want most of it. Okay, so there is our first coat of painting. I am going to leave that balmy blue on my space because we are going to use it again for the berries. And while we let that blue, interesting, on the camera some of it doesn't look blue, but it is all painted blue, I promise you. While we let that dry, I am just going to bring in, that's why I had that there, right. Okay, let's bring this, can I bring it up? Okay. What am I going to bring in? I'm going to bring in the Night of Navy. And I'm going to move this over here and smoosh a little bit more Night of Navy down on my tray. Now, I don't need a lot of Night of Navy, so if you're just using a little block, that is perfectly fine. Oh, let's see if we can bring... There we go. Didn't realize how out of the camera I got that. Okay, so I'm just going to do the same thing I did with the balmy blue. Drop a little bit of water next to the Night of Navy, and I'm just going to pull a little bit of ink into that water. That might have been too much. Where's my test page? No, that'll be fine. Okay. So now I'm going to take that ink and I'm going to go over where I have the gray on my berries because I want blueberries this time. I don't want red berries, but we're going to use the same technique to create that darker spot on, and I want that to be a little bit darker. I'm not happy with how there we go. It's a little bit too light. Okay. So you kind of have to experiment. You might think it looks okay, and then you go and put it on the layer that's there and go, nope, need a little bit of darkness. So you can definitely do that with this technique. Now the very, very tip of these brushes has a little, it goes super, super fine at the tip, and I don't quite like the lack of control that it gives me in tight spaces like this, because it's just not cut well for my my tastes. But you know, make it work. Find a brush that works for you, and if it's not a Stampin' Up product, that's perfectly okay. My favorite brush that I currently have, I think actually comes from a completely different, well, I know it comes from a completely different vendor because I got it as a freebie when I participated in a workshop, and I'm not even sure I could tell you where I got it from. So I probably could go back and do the research if you're interested, but you can just pick up, oh, try not to get that in that blob there that I have. You can just pick up a paintbrush. It does not have to be, you know, one of these water painters, because I don't actually use the water from the tip. I use the water on my workspace. I do not like how this last one is going on. There we go. Okay, so now you can see the blue in my little berries. Still have the blue on my leaves. And I'm going to clean off that brush. And you'll notice that that Night of Navy color has discolored my tip, but that's okay. I know it's clean when I wipe it off on a paper towel and no color comes off of it. It's just been dyed. The bristles have been dyed a little bit by the color of the ink. All right. So the next place we're going to go is with the Evening Evergreen. And I'm going to just swipe some of that on my space. Oh, excuse me. I'm going to bring some water over here. And we are going to bring in some color. And this is going to be for our stem. Perfect. All right. So I'm going to just go along the dark side of the stem here. Again, pretty much where those hashtag marks are, hash marks. And I'm trying to keep it very thin. Now I did just say that this brush isn't my favorite because the very tip doesn't give me as much control as I would like, and that is definitely what is happening here. So it's going a little wider than I really want it to be, but we're going to be able to manage that. One thing I do really like about watercoloring is the ability to go back over it over and over again just to get the color variations exactly as you want them. And we'll do that today too. Okay, we're going over this one here. So I'm trying to stick to about half, no more than half of the stem so that I'm going to be able to come in here with a second generation of color. But like I said, that tip is just not giving me the control that I really want. So it's definitely gone to a bit more than half. Let's see if I can get the camera to focus on that for you. There you go. I'm sorry, I'm shaking it so it's not staying focused. So I'm going to let that part of it dry and we're going to go back to those berries. And now I'm going to underpaint those berries with some of the blue that we have over here. Okay, so I'm picking up that blue and I'm going to pull it in over that Night of Navy. Just like that. I will end with a layer of Night of Navy on here, so we are going to go back into these berries one more time. Okay, because I'm going to need a layer that's kind of between these two blues to blend this out really nicely. I'm sending a little bit of water over here. The wetter your brush, the more the water or the more the ink is going to move around when you apply it to your paper. So you want to create a balance between the two. Okay. So I know you can see that the berries are really heavy and they have a little bit of underpainting. We are going to go in with, this is dry, this is dry. Okay, so we're going to go in with that Evergreen again, and we are going to go with a lighter color than what we first added. So let's just see if I can mix that out on there. No, I want it even lighter, which means bring in a little bit of water. All right, so now I'm going to blend this stem together here. If yours wasn't dry, definitely take your heat tool and dry that out, that area that we are painting. And I just check if it's dry by putting my finger on it. If it feels cool, it's probably not dry. But these are little spaces, so they shouldn't take too long. Just go down in this one a little bit. And just under this berry a bit. All right, it's looking better. Okay, let's see, are my berries dry? Not quite. All right, so I'm just gonna grab my heat tool. And because I'm working on a glass surface, I can heat right onto my surface. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. I'm gonna use the first setting and just dry this out a little bit. All right, that should be good enough. It wasn't too wet. And now I'm gonna go and add a little bit of the dark navy blue, the night of navy. A little bit more water over here. Okay, so we're mixing this up. All right, now I'm going to just paint these out and blend those colors together. Okay, so it gives those berries a really nice layer of color. Oh my goodness, and I see I've got, well, maybe that's where my greeting's gonna go. I think that's where my greeting's gonna go on this one. Greetings can hide a multitude of sins. There we go. Try to keep my hand off the paper now that I know I have some blue ink on it. Oop, that one got a little darker than I had intended. Just bring a little bit of water on it. Thin that out a little bit. There we go. I love these berries when they come in the blue. They just look so pretty, and it reminds me maybe less of a mistletoe and more of a juniper berry. Now, did I do these guys? Yeah, you guys are done. All right, so there's my blueberries. Just gonna clean that brush off. And since we are done with the navy, I'm just gonna wipe that away with my wet wipe so that I don't get colors mixed up. Plus, I need space to bring in our not Night of Navy, no, Soft Succulent. And you know what? I don't need the Balmy Blue, so we're also going to get rid of that. Then I've got lots of space for bringing in my Soft Succulent. So we're going to toss that and bring in a mush of Soft Succulent. I'm just going to dry this a little bit so I don't contaminate my ink pad. Okay, so there's a squish of Soft Succulent. Bring these guys more into the space here. And I'm going to just bring in some more Evening Evergreen, maybe a little bit darker than I had last time. So that's probably good. And we are going to create the centers of the leaves by doing this, okay? So again, I'm trying to do that swish that I did last time there. That one was great. So put your brush down more firm and then bring it up lighter at the end. There we go. And I'm pretty much reloading every time here. This one is a little bit light for me. There we go. And I completely worked from the wrong side of my paper. Always work left to right instead of right to left, unless you're a lefty. If you're a righty, you're going to get your fingers in that ink, which is exactly what happened over there. Okay. Cleaning that off, and I did notice that I missed a bit of stem right in here, so I'm going to go back and color that. There we go. Okay. Once more with a little bit of the lighter Evergreen. How many inks can I get on my hand? Okay, we're going to do the same thing we did with the blend. And with that Evergreen, we're just going to bring it in on the edge of the leaves. So here I'm using a really fine tip, fine hand. And it's okay if some of your leaves end up darker than others. The plant isn't necessarily all exactly even. The light may not hit it all exactly even, depending on how that mistletoe is hanging, and ours on our card is definitely hanging. So we can work with it. Actually, I'm kind of liking the way that this is coming in a little darker. And we're going to work with it. Okay, so I'm going to go under here where there's the berries. These are going to be really dark at that top, and then they're going to blend out with the light. And guess what? I worked on this backwards again. That's okay. Okay. I hope you guys are liking this. I wanted to do a little bit of a different technique. Watercolor is hard to teach when we aren't face to face, but I thought maybe this would work. And given that the feedback I got when I was teaching coloring was that you prefer to do that outside of the class, I thought that this might be a good technique to try. For everyone to try. And if you need help while you're coloring these, please reach out. I would be more than happy to answer any questions that you have. All right. Now we're going to bring in that soft succulent. But I'm going to have to dry this because I know this isn't going to be dry enough between adding that evening evergreen. Let's see, that's a little dark. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to bring in my heat tool and just dry this off. All right, last layer, guys. We are going to come in with the soft succulent, and we're just going to put that over, just like we did on the last card, over anywhere where there is some blue. I might have made mine a little too. There we go. Okay, we're starting on this side. There we go. Perfect. If you go over the evening evergreen, you will reactivate that color. So just be careful how much you go over that, because you don't want your leaf to end up being a blob of one color. You do want that variation in there. So you need to keep that. You can go over it like the edges, like I am, just to keep it nicely blended, but you don't want to pull too much of that color down into the rest of your image. And you know what, seeing how my leaves have turned out, it's a good thing I did not wipe up that evening evergreen, because I think I'm going to go back. I want darker stems, so I'm going to go back over those with a really heavy evening evergreen hand, I think. But I'm really, really liking how these are turning out. I hope yours are turning out great. Oops. Stray brush stroke there, but that's okay. These are handmade cards. They're hand painted, not by machine, so they're gonna be, don't necessarily have to be, but they might be a little less than perfect, right? Oh, I love it. Okay, I love it. Now my stems aren't close to my leaves, at least not where I'm going to be painting, so I think I'm okay. And I'm just going to come in over here and pick up some of this really heavy ink and just go right over my stems. At least along the side where there's those hash marks, because I want a little more change and darkness in there. That's more what I'm looking for. Just a little bit more down here too. There we go. Okay, so other than my little bit of blue on there, I quite like the variegation and variety in that image. So I hope yours is just as successful. That is the water painted image. And then you also have the colored image, which somewhere when I was tidying up my space, I tucked it away, but you are going to have two images to have ready for our class on the, what did I say it was, the 17th of October?
Yes,
the 17th of October. So I will see you
on the 17th in class. Until then, I really hope you had fun with this technique and maybe learned a new coloring technique and some new skills. Until then, I will wish you happy stamping, and I will see you in class. Have a great day, everyone.